Welcome back to campus. It's great to see everyone. I was just talking with Dale Danifer while summers just seem to be too quick in some respects, but it is certainly a pleasure to see everyone back on campus, because I tell you, campus is absolutely alive right now. I don't know about you, but I definitely love the den of the start of a new semester, because the new students are floating around, they're talking to each other, they're exploring unexpected pockets of our campus and new corners of the campus for the first time. You see the orientation leaders kind of walking backwards. They're talking with our new first years and giving them new experiences. And also, for those of you who attended Monday's session with the parents, just watching them interact with their students and shedding tears as they kind of whispered words of encouragement to them. All of this is part of the anticipation and the exuberant hope, I think, that really characterizes the new semester. And there's really nothing quite like it. Just this week, I was fortunate enough not just to attend that Monday ceremony, but also the new graduate student orientation, the new first-generation luncheon, the first-generation student luncheon, the new parent-student welcome, of course, the newly tenured and senior faculty workshop, as well as the planning retreat for the School of Engineering. And at each one of these events, faculty, students, staff, everyone seemed to harbor that same sentiment of anticipation and excitement and hope for what's to come this semester. So, of course, we're here today to talk about the strategic plan. And as I've lived these past few days on our campus, I'm continually reminded that this plan is about building on that optimism and that energy that exists at times just like this. Times when the essence of our mission is perhaps visible in its purest state, and when the road ahead seems so clear. As we pass by groups of backpack-clad students who are talking excitedly, and faculty, as you are making those critical first introductions in your classes, and as you start to map out the new semester, and as you invite new crops of students to help you with your research, or as you get them excited about your field or your work, and staff, as you have those meetings and interactions with our students, as you guide them, as you start to tether them more tightly to the bonds of our campus, keep in mind that we are in the business of educating the next generation of society's leaders. We are disseminating our knowledge and our research, and we are building our community, and we are aspiring to have a greater impact on our world. And our plan is about just this. And the strategic planning journey that I started with you about 244 days ago today, but who's counting? This planning process has been making tremendous progress. The first thing that I want to do with you this morning is to remind you of what we did last semester. And after that, I'm going to invite Lisa up to engage you in an exercise to continue getting your feedback and your direction. And finally, we're going to be talking about next steps that we can be doing this semester as we gear up for the full implementation of the plan. Before I really dive in to kind of a recap, I want to underscore that when you compare what we've been doing here at Case Western Reserve with this planning process, it's very different than other strategic planning processes. I think it's no secret that we've gone about doing this differently, even from the point of language. For starters, we've been using a language that has abandoned the use and notion of committees or mission statements. Let me remind you that our effort was led by a group that we call the Thinkers, which were called together through a unique selection process, and their work has been informed by nearly 200 campus discussions and meetings. So over a period of 244 days, we've been talking intensely with each other about who we are as an institution, what we want to become, and why we need to make hard, thoughtful decisions. Now, I've been living with this plan now for 8 months, and it seems like I've been saying this over and over and over, but I'm hoping that for those of you returning back to campus, some of this is not as repetitive as at least as it is in my mind. Everything that we've been doing is in an effort to build a culture and a community of trust, of engagement, and of honest dialogue. Some of the conversations that we've been having, I'm going to be honest with you, they've been animated and some of them have been painful. but I think every conversation has been healthy and has brought us together. That's from the conversations that we've been having with alumni, with staff, with faculty, with students, and even with members of Greater Cleveland. I dare say that I think that we have started to set a tone for how we can talk constructively together. At the same time, we developed an accelerator that we've called the Seed Sprints, and this was done really to harvest ideas that could be tested over a short period of time in order to advance the work of the university and to begin to inform the work of the thinkers. And I think it's fair to say that there was a passion for this process and that our community responded well to the call. Now, our Seed Sprints have started to provide us with some innovative and thoughtful solutions to some of the problems that face our campus every day. Some of the Seed Sprints have also started to look deeply into where we can go as an institution. And because this is a new process, for those who have been involved in this, there seems to have been a little bit of a hiatus, but we're trying to pick back up a momentum as we start to build the metrics and start to build this phase of the strategic plan. Now, while we have not advertised widely what we've been doing to the outside world, a few external audiences have started to take notice of what's been happening. And according to Amit Mirg, who is the president of Academic Impressions, which is a leading higher education training entity, what we've been doing with our process has the potential to help inform and redefine long-range planning processes at universities. And I just wanted to quote from him because I think it's interesting, his insight into what we've been doing. He said, "Facing an uncertain future, we need more voices and perspectives at the table, not less. Case Western Reserve's or Case Western's planning process is uniquely powerful in how it includes diverse stakeholders to think and plan for the future together." This all brings us to today. I think that we've reached an important moment now. Our process has led us to a better understanding of who we are and who we want to be. For those of you who attended the May 4th Seed Sprint report out, you've heard some of what I'm about to say, but let me say it again because I think these are important words. Case Western Reserve is a high-impact, comprehensive research institution enriched by educational and cultural assets. But we aspire to do more. We aspire to be greater. To get there, we have to improve our culture and our community so that we can see ourselves as one Case Western Reserve. Our thinkers last semester, through listening intently to our campus, helped guide us to a statement that we've been calling our North Star. So let's briefly take a look at that statement once again and let those words sink in. Case Western Reserve is a high-impact research university that aspires to be a community where humanity, science, and technology meet to create a just and thriving world. I, for one, think that these are powerful and meaningful words, and they've been very carefully and intentionally curated by our thinkers. At our Seed Sprint report out in May, I also unveiled a metaphor that has started to be circulating now on our campus about the type of approach or a way of operating, a behavior that we might adopt to positively influence our community and to help us reach our North Star. And I've been calling this Agora Academics. Let me take a few moments to re-explain this. In ancient Greece, the Agora was a fundamental building block of community. It was a place of meeting, a place of confluences, of exchange. It was defined by intense debate, powerful contemplation, and important advances in our understanding of the human condition. Like the great agoras of ancient Greece, our campus is an incredible gathering place for human creativity, for curiosity and innovation. What we're going to try to do over the next few years is to utilize the nexus that we are to build our research and our interdisciplinary activity. But we're planning to do this with a unique twist. We will infuse interdisciplinarity with greater attention to community and culture. It is this special blend that unlocks the essence of Agora Academics. Interdisciplinarity plus community and culture equals Agora. Now, we have been looking to find 4 critical investment areas to realize the full impact of Agora Academics and to help lead us to our North Star. After surveying our campus and listening to ideas from our community, we unveiled these pathways in June, and since then we've been honing, we've been refining them, always remembering that these pathways are more impactful as they intersect. Now, if you start to look behind me, you're going to see these 4 pathways, and I want to walk you through them at this time. The first pathway is realizing interdisciplinary research and education. Now, as we all know, the problems facing society in our world are becoming ever more complex. It's almost cliche. These new problems require solutions, learning, and expertise that falls outside the boundaries that normally structure higher education. This is to say that some of society's solutions fall across disciplines, across methodologies, across ways of knowing, across institutions, across communities. And some of these solutions will be unpacked in opportunities for learning that happen both inside and outside of the classroom. It's no secret that our campus enjoys a historic tradition of being a serious place for interdisciplinarity. But we've realized that together, through this planning process, that we've yet to fully operationalize and organize ourselves to maximize what we can gain from interdisciplinarity. Supporting interdisciplinary research and education entails developing more enabling structures to enhance how we conduct our research and how we educate our students. This pathway is among those that our campus advocated for the loudest last semester. You clearly told us that you want to cross boundaries with greater ease, that you want to push the boundaries of knowledge better than other universities. One of the things that we've also realized that this is a very, very hard work, and that many schools have struggled to manage the traditional silos of academia, but our plan is calling us to take this on. I think it's also important for me to say here that as someone who was the founding director of an interdisciplinary center and who managed interdisciplinary programs at other institutions, one of the things that I realize is that it takes strong disciplines to achieve interdisciplinarity. We are committed to cultivating our disciplines as best we can. But I equally understand that as we tend to our disciplines, we must simultaneously find the structures, the processes, and the culture for enabling the disciplines to meet in their most fruitful ways and to cross-pollinate in their most productive sense. Pathway 2, addressing the human and technology together. From health-related inquiry to social sciences to the humanities and beyond. What we also heard loudly last semester is that we have a unique differentiator here at Case Western Reserve University. A differentiator that is part of our unique history as the product of a federation between 2 powerful and distinct institutions, the Case Institute of Technology and Western Reserve University, coming together. All of this combination or recombination of 2 institutions took place and is still taking place within a rich ecosystem of health sciences research, of pioneering social work, a business school that is known for centering human concerns, a law school with an important international profile. We are a place that is renowned for extolling excellence in technology in ways that keep the human at the core, that seeks to understand the linkages between tech and human, as well as the consequences and ethical dimensions of the human-tech interface. Not to mention the various ways in which we utilize technology to forward our work in multiple fields. Building on this uniqueness will allow us to adventure into new ways of understanding our rapidly changing, ever more technologically driven world. Pathway 3, achieving social impact through translation and distribution. We have found that social impact is important to our community. To achieve a deeper impact, we must disseminate our research and teaching much more widely beyond our campus. And we must embark upon meaningful and even deeper and longer-lasting partnerships to do this. Some of this involves redefining our relationship with industry or refining how we partner with external entities, such as governments or nonprofits, in order to distribute our educational assets. In no short order, we must become a distributed university, extending access to our classrooms, our scholarship, our strengths and values to communities that have not had access to us in the past, both domestically and globally. Pathway 4, becoming the Agora of the future. We have found over the past 244 days that we fundamentally believe in changing how our campus, our communities, and our world treat one another and how we reflect one another. We've found in this process a thirst in our community for inclusion, for trying to take the lead in being an inclusive place that embraces the future of our world with all of its textured differences. In envisioning this and in bringing it into being, we see the need to break boundaries on and off our campus. We see the need to find ways to have a more honest dialogue and debate, to create structures to work together more, to tackle difficult issues together, and to create the structures that will enable the leadership that rests within all corners of our campus. Our plan calls us to affirm the need for well-being and an environment for healthy growth. We are called to put people at the center of our decisions and prioritizing diversity of thought, of mind, and of background. Now, as I mentioned before, we released the draft of our plan on June 19th, and since then we've been gathering feedback. A group of deans and members of the Provost Advisory Council, the Faculty Senate, the Staff Advisory Council, and both the undergraduate and graduate student governments have been meeting weekly to discuss the plan all summer. We've also held several well-attended campus meetups to hear in-person feedback from our campus community. Along the way, there have been a number of new insights that have started to push this plan and has led us to unveil new iterations of the plan. It's a little different now than it was on June 19th. Now, in a moment, I'm going to ask Lisa to come up and walk you through an exercise to gather even more feedback, which represents part 2 of this morning with you. She's also going to do a deeper dive into the potential metrics that may be used to track our progress and to help us achieve our North Star. But before that, I definitely want to thank all of you for being a part of this so far. We hope that some part of what we discussed today, that it resonates with you, that you've already been thinking about an initiative or a project or some action, or no matter how big or how small, that's going to help us advance one of these pathways. We're also pretty hopeful that this strategic planning process has engaged you differently in new ways of thinking and in new ways of operating and of doing. Now with that, I'd like to turn it over to Lisa and begin part 2 of our morning.
All right, thank you, Ben. So we're now going to get into rolling our sleeves up and getting to work. And what we're going to really do is try to get your feedback on these objectives and the metrics that we've been working on over the summer. They are drafts still, and they're being passed around right now, and I'm going to walk through them a bit with you. But like this entire process, we mean it when we say we want your feedback, and we're hearing it, and we're taking it. So what you see today, we put a little stamp that said draft. That's really a draft, and we mean it that it's a draft. So I want to make sure that's clear. All right, so I'm going to talk through the pathways at a high level, where I'm going to talk about a little bit more of why they were selected, the goals, and then really general objectives before I unleash you on doing some work. Now, the first one on terms of the why interdisciplinarity. Now, we know from the research trends that going after research funding or doing the work, that this is where our agencies are funding. It's across the disciplines. And it's super important for us to get organized across these disciplines. We also know that our student interest has told us throughout this whole process that students want to use both sides of their brain. They want to take classes across the campus. They really want to mix things up. So we have to think about that differently. And again, to reiterate what Ben had said earlier, you told us that we need to do better in this. So this is why this pathway rose to the top. And I just list up here some of the seed sprints that helped inform this, both the funded and the non-funded. We've said this a few times, and I want to make sure we say it again. We received 139 seed sprint applications, and all but maybe 5 were phenomenal. I mean, our campus is full of these incredible ideas, and it was just really unfortunate we could only fund 17. But even those that were submitted that weren't funded, informed this process because we were able to see what you were thinking. All right, so the Pathway 1 goal. And so if you look at the pieces of paper that you have in front of you, we have a description, which Ben talked through that a little bit, and then we have a goal, and then we have a various objectives. So the goal for Pathway 1, and again, feedback is welcome, is to become known across the world as an institution that has strengths and supporting structures in interdisciplinary research and education. And the objectives that we have identified at the moment to move us forward include increase the amount of interdisciplinary research on campus. And you'll note on those kind of sub-objectives that we're looking at structures, how do we improve the support, the number of PhD students, that type of thing. That's one. The second is to show significant growth in interdisciplinary master's programs. We've heard a lot of that around campus, that it's important to do that. We also know there's audiences that want that from our campus. We want to enhance undergraduate learning and engagement at the interdisciplinary intersections. And then we want to strengthen our infrastructure to support this work. And so the objectives that you have underneath on your table, and then those underneath it, I talk about what we think we can focus on to get us there. Now I'm going to take a quick pause because I see folks reading. We will be breaking up in tables to have you, everyone will be assigned a pathway to give us feedback. That's part of the work that we're going to be doing. So let me go through the rest of them because everyone will be assigned a particular pathway to work on. The second one, reiterating a core strength. We know this is a growth opportunity across the campus in human and tech. We know we can do a lot here. We can really we've made a name for ourselves. This is a strength. We can do even more by including more on the campus. And so again, the seed sprints that help inform us and is part of this in terms of getting us to this point. The goal that we've identified over the summer is to encourage and enable our faculty, staff, and graduates to make a difference in the global community by providing educational and research experiences that increase student understanding and application of technology in a humanistic way. Now, we've already had questions about, well, how are you defining human tech? We are not going to define that. You are going to define that. One thing that we have learned through this process, working on this campus, is that there are so many incredible ideas and great thinkers out there that you will help us define this. We're not going to define what the human-tech intersection means because we've already heard ideas that are just phenomenal in terms of how you're defining it. So the objectives that have been put out for you to react to, so we want to grow the human-tech research portfolio and what it means. We want to grow the number of faculty who are devoted to research at this intersection. This isn't just new faculty, but it's also existing faculty in terms of what are you doing that really apply to this, and is this interesting to you? We've heard from many that it is. We want to provide experiences for the student body to really play in this space. Whether it's experiential learning, whether it's classroom, we want to do more for our students because they're asking for it. And we want to strengthen this digital backbone that we have to enable this work, both educationally and also on the research side. The third pathway, the impact. Again, I'm not going to go into too much details, but I do want you to see the seed sprints and funded and unfunded. And I will say this is not a complete list. With 139, I could not list them all, just a snapshot. And our goal, we want to reestablish the higher education compact with the public to translate our expertise as well as achieve social good through robust engagement and partnerships and activities from the local to the global. So this is one thing that's really important as we work through this, and to remember, higher ed is a bit under attack, as we might have noticed, right? And we have to, I don't care if you're a private institution or you're a public institution, higher ed has to help the public see our worth. And we do so much, but we have to talk about it differently. We have to get out there differently. People have to see us differently. So that's one reason why this concept of that reestablishing the higher ed compact is part of this goal, because we think it's very important for us to take on. The objectives. Engage in meaningful partnerships with a wide array of organizations. That objective needs a little more work in terms of how we're going to really measure it. So look at that carefully. But one thing I want to put in the background of this, we had a student, Marin, our president of undergraduate student body. She said, it's not just about counting partnerships. It's about impact. It's about breadth and depth and really going into the intensity of these partnerships. So we don't want to count partnerships, right? Maybe we do, maybe we don't. It's on the list, so consider it. But we want to figure out how do we have meaningful, deep partnerships with breadth and intensity. Contribute to the improvement of the mental, physical, legal, and financial health of Cleveland and East Cleveland. So a decision point was made during the process this summer. At one point, this said, just let's make sure let's see if we can improve life of Cleveland and Northeast Ohio overall. But then there was a really robust discussion that said, well, wait a minute, our neighbors, East Cleveland and Cleveland, there's a lot going on here. And maybe we need to really focus there and really think about what kind of impact we want to have. And you'll note on your paper that we're talking about, do we want to start tracking and measuring infant mortality? Do we want to look at the opioid use? Do we want to look at things that we know we're doing in our communities, and maybe can we see what we're doing will move the needle for East Cleveland and Cleveland? So that's something to consider. Tie student learning in and out of the classroom around generating social impact throughout the world. Again, this is another place where the students are really hungry for meaning and hungry for getting out there in and out of the classroom for this impact. Supporting an environment where innovation and translation thrive, as well as entrepreneurial thinking, acting, and doing. So again, we've heard throughout the campus that faculty, students, staff have ideas that they want to get out in a nonprofit sense and a for-profit sense, right? So what does that look like and how do we support that? We do that in pockets, but how do we do that more holistically? And then how do we really distribute and disseminate our expertise throughout the world? What does that look like? How should we be doing that? What kind of partnerships do we need to be having? What assets are the right assets to take out? The last one, our people. So this is about us. This is about all of us and how we work together, how we look, how we treat each other. What was super interesting is that as we were going through all the feedback, as we were talking with the thinkers, this issue of us, our people, it was at the top of almost every discussion. And so we believed that we needed to highlight this as one of the pathways that are important. And that's why it's there. So our goal, become a model of a highly technical society that builds a sense of true community and prepares the next generation to make positive change for all people, starting on our campus. We need to model for our students, for those coming on our campus, what it means to be a thriving community and society, and how do you lead in that? And so some of the objectives we have now, the first, model a campus culture that is demonstratively inclusive and welcoming for all. It was noted yesterday that our process objectives is not a good one, so we will fix that. And feedback on that, absolutely. Prepare our campus to become leaders in the agora or the agora. We're going to use both pronunciations for the future. We're going to be inclusive even on the word. But leadership matters to this campus at the faculty, staff, and student level. And leadership at every part of this campus is important. We need to grow our practices and approaches to represent a just and fair community. So you'll see some of the sub-objectives on your list talks about how do we really act like an environmentally sustainable campus? How do we model that? How do we make sure our structures are such that models what we do here so that we know when we leave how to do it elsewhere or in other organizations? So what does just and fairness and wellness mean to this campus so that we model it and build the right structures? And then finally, enacting policies, practices, and approaches that put people first. We need to think through some of these things. We need to think through our structures. We need to think through how we pay people. We know that was an issue for everybody, faculty and staff, everybody. What does it look like? It's complicated, right? It's super complicated. But how do we do something different? How do we take it on? How do we take on these issues that affect us every day? How do we communicate differently about it? So those are our objectives that I ran through. More details are on those papers. Once again, draft. We want your feedback. Our deans, our VPs, the presidents of the student, undergraduate and graduate student body, staff advisory council, faculty senate, everyone worked really hard over the summer to get us to this point, and I need to thank them. They met every Wednesday, 4 o'clock, showed up regularly, or they Zoomed in to help us get to this point today. But we also know that this is part of having you engaged and giving us the feedback around this, because again, this is us that we're trying to pull this together, how we're pulling this together. So the activity. All right, so you all have a table number. So people at table 1 through 6, we would like you to focus on pathway 1. You have note cards on your table because, as you know, we like to document what you think so that we can totally understand it and bring it into the plan. So every table has a pathway they're going to focus on. Every table has a set of note cards to give us feedback. Before I flip, does everybody know what pathway they're going to be working on? Because as part of the work, we have 2 questions. 1, what is the pathway that resonates most for you, makes you most excited about where we can go? We want to know that. Because you're the ones that's going to take this plan forward. So we want to know what about those pathway, the pathway you're looking at, what part of it resonates most with you. And then second, what are some things we should consider doing, as well as some things we should stop doing to meet some of the objectives in that pathway? So we want to hear from you. Put your thoughts on those cards. We're going to give you about 10 minutes to work on it, because if we send you off, we know we won't necessarily get that feedback. So we'd like you to work on it for about 10 minutes. And then we'll come back up here. The provost will then wrap us up and say where we go next and what to expect next.
And I want to thank everyone, of course, for their enthusiasm and your questions and your ideas and your feedback on these cards. I really want to take just a few moments now to kind of talk with you about what's going to be taking place this semester. So first, we're going to be taking your feedback, as well as that of others, and that we're going to be receiving over the next several weeks. And we're going to start integrating this into the plan's metrics and objectives. So if you have any additional ideas, I want you to please let us know either by completing the feedback form on the Think Big website under Outcomes, or you can email me or Lisa. And also, we want you to watch for a meetup that's going to be taking place in September for another update. So that's going to be another chance for us to engage our community, roll it all up, see where we are, take the pulse as we roll into October. Now, second, once we finalize the metrics, we're going to be talking about the process for implementing Think Big. Like the rest of this planning process that we've outlined, I think it's going to look very different than what you've been accustomed to. So what we're envisioning is an approach somewhat similar to what we did with the seed sprints, although not quite as fast and as intense as the seed sprint process. This is going to be one where our campus is going to be proposing ideas that are going to push us a little bit more forward towards that North Star. So some of the ideas proposed will be a continuation of the existing seed sprints. Now, other ideas we expect are going to be entirely new ideas that are going to be springing forth over the next 30 days. Some of these ideas are going to be process-oriented. One big lesson from last semester is a lot of what our campus is looking for is really about fixing structures, making things easier, things that we can actually do without funding, just permission to act. At my previous institution, or one of my previous institutions, people always spoke about licenses to do this or that, and that's what this really is. Now, other ideas will require support that leverages not just the funds that we are planning to put into the strategic plan, but I also want you to know that we're thinking about working very closely with development. And so what we're going to be trying to do is to match ideas with our funding and with development opportunities, which is going to expand the ability for us to do things. And already Carol and I have had very robust conversations about what this can look like, and I'm very excited about this. So I want you to note that the process we are envisioning is different from what you might expect from typical strategic planning processes. We will be looking for your full engagement and collaboration. It is at this point where I've even heard whispers on parts of the campus, oh, things are getting cooked, I have no way in. That's not right. There is plenty of room for you to get in. And this is very different from a linear kind of input-output type model that many plans are accustomed to presenting. This is a continual feedback loop type model where we're constantly getting information in as we move toward our end point. This is going to be iterative. It's going to be grounded in our reality. It's going to be deliberate, and it's going to be tied to the metrics that we're developing. And it's going to be a process, and I'm going to underscore this because we heard this intensely, that is going to be focused on a one Case Western Reserve University concept, one campus, one university, and how we collectively together, staff, faculty, students, alumni, community, how we begin to collectively move our institution forward. Now, as for timing, our expectation is that we're going to be able to finalize the metrics and to begin implementing the new process by the end of October. So that's what we're racing toward now. Last semester we were racing toward June. Now we're racing toward October so that we can go forward. So that's it for today. I want you to remember that this is a process about us coming together to the table to work together and to build what I see as the campus of the future. I want to thank all of you for your participation, your work at your tables, the exercise. Continue to look forward to for more information. I think there is just a couple of minutes. If anyone has a question or two, I think we can take that, or a comment. We can take that for about, I'd say about 4 minutes. So anything from the floor? Okay, well, if not, thank you again, and see you soon.